I'm Eva O, and this is the Teakink Podcast. I've been a dominatrix since 2011, and I would like to spill the tea on my life. Thank you for listening. Hello, I'm Eva O, if you didn't already know, and this is today's Teakink guest. I know I don't have many, they're very special. So this is Faye, otherwise known as Goddess Faye to the privileged ones on the ground, if we wish to have them there. But yes, would you like to tell us what you do?
Yeah.
Goddess Faye, as known as Faye, today.
Hello, I'm Faye. On the Wild West, that is the internet. I'm known as Sensory Girl. That's been a long holdover from many personas I've taken over the years on the internet, you know. Fond memories from the Tumblr years.
What was on your Tumblr?
Oof, lots of fetish content.
Okay.
And when I was first kind of exploring that part of myself. And yeah.
When was that? Like how many years?
I was like in maybe fourth year university. So.
And it's evolved into full-time, almost full-time dominatrix.
Yeah, I was really playing. Like once I got a personal computer, it was sort of over.
So did you discover fetish on Tumblr?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And, you know, through a few, you know, close friends and just having that community around.
Okay.
I've been blessed with a lot of very fluid people in my life and just a lot of experimental sorts of folk, and you know, it's all kind of culminated until what I do now, which is I am a dominatrix. More recently, I've been liking the term pro-deviant. Okay, it really aligns with my soul for some reason.
How does it differ to the term dominatrix for you?
I think for me, right now in the scenes that I'm sort of around, in the communities, I think there's a lot of old guard, which I'm so respectful of, and I think the dominatrix is something that's to me so revered, and it's a bit more high protocol, a bit more serious, whereas a pro-deviant soul I think is a bit more mischievous to me. So I've been trying to find other terms to sort of describe me without using so many words all the time, because the bios have to be short.
Did you start off using the term dominatrix?
I did, yeah.
Okay. Have you ever heard of the German term bizarre, lady?
No, I love that.
So when you go to fetish studios in Germany, you have the domina, which is the old guard sort of style.
Yeah.
And then you have the bizarre lady, who is the fetishist. Yeah, sometimes verging on escort work,
right?
But from a fetishistic angle,
right? Oh my gosh, I love that.
Yeah, so it's a puzzlement to me why that hasn't really carried over to the English speaking world much.
Oh, interesting.
So why have you called yourself Sensory Girl?
So in the Tumblr days, I used to make content where I used to sit on things, particularly things that were textural, liquidy, slimy in nature, and that eventually evolved into making customs of just me sitting. And this was very face out. I only recently very casually revealed my face because I just, I was this, I'm not doing anything wrong. I feel extremely empowered in the way that I'm moving through my dom work now. Yeah. So I just kind of was hey.
So Sensory Girl didn't have any face?
No, yeah. All the content was neck down.
And what was the camera angle of the sitting?
I had this IKEA table that I would prop myself on. So the camera was very straight on to that. Yeah. And then sometimes I would take the camera and kind of do this.
So you pour things onto the IKEA table?
Yes, exactly. And then sit.
How do you handle the mess?
Garbage bags, tarps.
Okay. Do you do any more play of that, wet and messy play?
I do when it's requested. Not too much. A lot of dungeons actually in Toronto don't allow that sort of play. But I have been thinking about it lately of how do I get back into that sort of content where it sort of suits me now.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll be interesting.
So there's something very visceral about that, right?
Yeah.
But yet there's a lot about your work that is more technologically aligned.
Yeah.
How do you think those two things kind of meet for you? Because I think people would often imagine like a distance, a coldness to a technology, that word in our mind.
Absolutely.
But yet yours is a visceral approach also. Is it two different things for you?
A little bit, yeah, because that was very, very early in my kind of kink exploration personally. And I think now that I'm in a bit more of a empowered state of how I'm kind of running my dom work, my personal kinks with technology and how to fold that in is sort of a new thing that I'm exploring. So it is like a new facet of myself I think I'm trying to fold in. And it's so interesting that you say that it feels a bit more like a colder side.
I think that's how people would perceive it.
For sure,
right?
yeah, absolutely. And I think that's what I'm sort of trying to unpack, right? It's like, how do I fold it in a way that feels human? And because what we do in our industry is so human-centered. And I think that's what technology wants to be. The best type of tech is the ones that understand the human-centered lens.
Why do you think that would be a better as opposed to a worse perspective? And is that a personal view?
Yeah, I think so. So. And also I think it's something, just within technology design is like they strive for that sort of humanness, to have technology truly integrate with our lives. And I think when you think about, the work that we do, it is really tied to a primal sort of sense of humanness and being human. And how interesting would it be to have technology really integrate in and like maybe enhance that part of us? And that to me is so interesting. And also like sci-fi in itself is just incredible, even from like an aesthetic standpoint. And
you have a design background?
I do, yes. Yeah, I went to school for design. I work still professionally in a creative field. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Not to say too much of
fair. And
civ life.
How we actually met was I put something out on Instagram, right? Asking about AI and sex work and if people had opinions on it. I'm still very much navigating how I feel about it. And I find it very hard for me to put a finger on how I feel because the information's just changing all the time. And so I feel quite lost.
Yeah. And that's totally fair. And honestly, same. Because right now we're in this like boom of this AI trend. And there's so much that is either misinformation or just things hopping on a trend to kind of get things out there or sell a product really quickly and things like that. And I think when you put that out and you were really vocal about, exploring that and being unsure was actually quite comforting to me to see as well, especially in the kink space and from another dom, because I see this emerging technology and I'm always so enthusiastic about how to, fold things like that in and like look at emerging technologies in a way that is inviting to fold into my practice. But AI has been an interesting one. It's hard to pin down. It's hard to see how it would enhance our work. Because I guess right now the state of it is it's very product forward, we live in a capitalistic society, so everything becomes a product. And I'm always trying to humanize when I'm working through, things like sessions or even just my approach. And to feel like I'm further productizing myself is something I try to avoid.
Where did the humanization of design come from for you? Was that something that came through the study, or do you think it's something that's just
through the study for sure?
What in the study sort of brought that up?
It's actually a really old theory within design, modern design. I used to be obsessed with this book called Emotional Design, which is kind of like a textbook when it comes to how the design of things and the objects around us affect how we feel and how we perceive them and how they're used and how they're functioning within our lives. And so that was like a really early text that I read.
How was it so inspiring for you, do you think?
I think it's important, it's important to have things like that around in our lives to enhance it or to, make it easier. So then there's a lot of parallels. I think back to that text when I think about sessions or when I think about play partners and how to interact with them. I think the basis of my process is like, how do I want this person to feel and how do I get there? And then folding in my own personal kinks with technology is, I think of it as an enhancement of like, how do I enhance myself to then get to this end vision of how to make this person feel at the end. I
want to know about the enhancements.
Yes.
And what do you mean kinks with technology?
Ooh, yes. Okay. So first of all, I'm just a giant nerd. Let's just put that out there. I love a computer. I love a mechanical keyboard. I love the aesthetics of that.
Okay.
And I think there's so much in what we do and in BDSM and the kink world that is aesthetic. Like, let's not deny that. It's such a part of it. It has to be there for it to work, to again, enhance.
Yeah.
So I don't shy away from that at all. And I love sci-fi, basic things like Blade Runner, all of those things. Dune even, I just watched that recently, so that's a core sort of pillar of what I do. But then enhancement is like, you can take a technological thing and like make your voice bigger. You can make someone feel, more centered or even more like restrained. I was just thinking, because we were miking each other up before we started here, I did do a session recently where it was actually quite lo-fi, but I had basically a vocal mixer, a vocal effects sort of pedal, and 2 microphones and 2 headphones. And it was me and my submissive, and we were sort of tethered by this technology. Quite simple, but, and this submissive is quite into hypnosis and that sort of play. So, and as I like now that
Were you operating the pedal?
I was, yeah.
Okay.
So all of that was set up. I had one mic. They were mic'd as well, headphones for the both of us. And I was able to sort of make myself sound like I was 3 different people, or I was able to like on the fly affect my voice while speaking to them.
Were they restrained?
They were, yes. Restrained.
Okay. Did they have sight?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Just because I wanted them to see the
setup.
Again, the aesthetic and the setup of like all the blinking lights, and it can be quite overstimulating. So the blindfold was left at home.
Yeah.
Oh, and so that was part of it. And I loved this idea of this like disembodied, but also enhancement of my voice. And then there was also a point where they were mic'd as well. And there was a bit of impact play, which then sent their voice.
Feedback.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah. Which then sent their voice to my mixer. And then I could run that to their headphones, which then gave them a disembodied sort of weird view of themselves.
Love it.
And,
How long did this go on for?
This was, I think, a 5-hour session. Yeah.
At what point did you hook everybody up?
It was just me and the other sub. So it was from the beginning. Yes. Yeah. It was kind of the focus of the thing.
Wow.
And I'm so grateful now that I'm thinking about it, and I'm so privileged to actually have these play partners and people that are so much of a blank vessel for me this is like a weird idea. This is like I have
a lot of people
this
would
gear.
be open to it.
Yeah, I think so. I just love the idea of a human instrument, like literally. And metaphorically, but
Yeah, I mean, lots of sci-fi things could be said right now.
I know. We're gonna just decline.
We're just gonna be an episode about my favorite sci-fi books.
Exactly.
And about what I think about the Dune
Somebody
movie.
would love that.
There's a book by, I'm going to say the name incorrectly, Paolo Bacigalupi. Yeah. Do you know? There's a short story series, but I think that he's also known for something called The Wind-Up Girl.
Oh.
But in the short stories, there's literally one pair of twins that have been created to become instruments.
Oh my gosh!
Essentially,
I have to look this up later.
There's also like putting the Dalai Lama in like a cube. There's like all sorts of interesting stories.
My goodness.
But like just thinking about us shifting. Have you listened to the podcast episode that I had on my ultimate fantasy, my last fantasy that I have? So in this fantasy, I am in this dystopian future.
Yeah.
Where humans cannot interact anymore. It's not really.
Wait, is this the one where you described your dream dungeon, or is that different?
It's different. But I mean, this is a place I would like to create too.
Yes.
And essentially, I had this facility, and people come in to have human-like experiences. But I infiltrate the system.
Yes.
And I am a human in this human-like experience with this human client. And it talks about the things that I shift in the room.
Yes.
Things that are like making like structures appear and then disappear. Making my clothing shift according to how I want.
Yes.
Using sound in space in order to hypnotize and confuse and discombobulate.
Yeah, absolutely.
And moving them in space without them moving themselves. Yeah. And so there's like a lot of technology, I guess. And maybe I also have a technology kink and I didn't think about it.
You need to explore that, I feel like. Oh my gosh.
And I've been
this is incredible idea
about how to make that room, you know, but I don't know if I can do it without VR at this point in time.
Right.
Yeah. And
somebody could be limiting.
Yeah. Somebody suggested that I do it with audio.
Audio and maybe projection mapping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of like, have you been to that Tokyo exhibit? It's called TeamLab.
Yes.
Yeah. Sort of like that. It kind of reminds me of that.
Yeah.
Or even like a James Turrell, like that.
Just
sort
like
of
go to TeamLab and say, I have this idea.
So
in a dystopian future.
I need the team at the lab.
There's this humanoid, but it's me.
Yeah. Shape shifting. No, there's audio.
And when you say enhancements, is that kind of also what you have in mind, or?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You know, it could go that far into fantasy, right? Where it's like, literally, I'm a cyborg, or like I'm so.
Yeah. What would you shift? What would you change?
Oh my gosh.
If you could.
Man.
I think the sonic thing is the mind infiltration thing is quite interesting.
That's my favorite.
Yeah. I mean, I already tried desperately to do that just through my basic human ways.
Which I'm sure you're successful
They're not bad. I mean, I've been doing it for a while. But
add some mics to your gear.
That could be interesting,
right?
But
or even a structure with like speakers or something.
Well, they have these speakers that can throw to specific points in a mapped room.
Yes.
Yeah. Of course,
absolutely.
this costs money.
With projection map would be incredible.
So I was thinking that.
Yeah.
But I've told a sub this story that I just told you a while ago before I recorded the podcast episode. And I got him to write a story in response. And it was pretty amazing. I should share it with you. But there's so many things that are happening, including shape-shifting clothing and including height change.
Height change, yes. I've thought about that as well.
But the thing that when I say mind control, it's like there was a facet in there where he turns on the ability to come.
Oh my god!
Because it's actually shut down when they leave the space, so it's like just impossible for them to come. In a mind way, as opposed to having a device. You know?
Yes.
Like, what else would we do?
Well.
What else would we shut on or off? Maybe we can plan a little a new style dungeon.
Yes. I need this in my life.
Yeah, there's this cyber brothel that I've been meaning to visit in Berlin.
Yeah.
And right now it's mostly these sex dolls. And they have a VR headset and they can warm up the dolls for you. And they have a voice actor also. So it's like there's a lot of interesting simulations that people are trying to do.
Yeah, I was reading about this one sort of AI adjacent thing where these, I don't know if it was out of some university, but it was a research group, and they were basically programming brain tissue with AI. And there were apparently signs that it was sentient. And I was like, that seems crazy. Need to fact check. But imagine that in sex tech, like something that becomes more and more sentient as you give it feedback. And, that's kind of how AI works, is that training. And I was like, my mind went to all these pervertibles.
Please tell me. One of the things you would program.
Oh my gosh. Well, it's already kind of happening. I feel like, they're starting on like things as simple as AI powered fleshlights, things like that. But I feel like I'm always trying to like push the idea of like, hey, it's not an object, like, it needs to feel like a presence almost, like some sort of control. I think that's just the lens that I look at through everything. But yeah, I love the idea of this like mind control, like we were saying, of like, how do we cultivate, turn on and off this like obsession? That's my favorite. Like, and is it through audio? Is it through, sensory overload? Is it deprivation? And how do we do that with tech? And honestly, the way that I've been exploring it within my sessions, it can be quite low tech. Like it doesn't have to be this like it could be 2 mics in a mixer and a vocal pedal.
That's not super low tech.
It's true. But that's like maybe a night's worth of YouTube tutorials, and you're there. And
what would be high tech for you?
I think what you're talking about with a spatial sort of like fully immersive thing, and also in a way that doesn't feel gimmicky as well, right? It cannot feel like you're going to like a VR center, in some arcade, right? Unless that's the aesthetic you're going for, But
yeah. I feel like the longer that I'm in, like if I have a very long VR session, then you can get lost. Yeah. But yeah, the initial shock is a little bit strange. But then it's very hard to come back from that.
Yeah. Which maybe is part of it, the dizzying.
I haven't done much VR porn stuff though. It's all been like immersive world stuff.
Yeah. Because it's sort of like the way that it is now, from what I've seen, is VR porn is just kind of like regular porn, but like in this
POV.
view. Yeah. It's not very imaginative.
It's not a dystopian future with a humanoid.
Yes. I feel like they need to consult us. Whoever's making those.
We can start our own production company.
I think that's the only way.
Yeah. What do you think would be an innovation for the sex industry at this point that you would like to see?
That's hard.
I mean, even things like OnlyFans are an innovation technically, right?
Yeah, true.
Yeah, that's taken up a lot of bandwidth for me.
Yeah. I really often dream about what it would be like if we truly had ownership and autonomy over these platforms, especially with AI coming out. The way that it's going to be available for regular people is going to be through like a productized thing that, is controlled by a larger entity. And yeah, I dream about what it would be like for us to create on something we actually own.
Like an open source.
Yeah. I'm such a stan for open source anything. That's really how the
technology.
That's really how the internet should be. That's how it should have been in the first place. It kind of was for a little bit, but
Was that also a byproduct of the of the design course?
I think so. And also just my upbringing. I feel like the internet raised me a little bit.
How did the internet that raised you compare to the internet that you see now?
Oh, right now, in my civ work, in my professional career, I work a lot in Web3. And I do not agree in the trajectory of it. It is so gatekept.
Can you explain what Web3 is?
Web3 is basically the new internet. So anything from crypto to AI is all built on there. It's sort of like a new system of coding, even things like blockchain, stuff like that. It's supposed to be more secure. There's a lot of lingo going around and also a lot of cons, you know.
But how do you see it as a not so bright future?
It's very closed and controlled. If we were very, very extreme about it, I think it feels almost like an internet colonization, sort of, where it's really being controlled by whoever can get there first. And maybe that's like a late stage capitalism sort of symptom, but it has none of the open source, the community aspects of what the internet could be. And I think there is a lot of sort of like grassroots stuff happening to combat that.
Like what?
Do you remember GeoCities?
Yeah.
There's something called
who didn't have one?
Yeah. That was a little before my time.
Oh, okay.
But
I had one.
Yeah.
There were things following my cursor and everything.
Oh my God, yes. Of course you had a custom cursor. Of course you did. Of course. Yeah, but now there's a thing called NeoCities. Okay. And there's sort of a movement to have like your own website, an open source community of just to how to like be social on and how to be a human online.
How to be a human online.
Yeah. How to have a second life.
How do you do that?
A real way. It's hard with, capital M social media now, right? It's like ads and branding, and which is fine too. I love a brand. I love a persona, but I think more and more people want like true connection online.
Why do you think that?
I think it's just the way the world has gone, right? Like post-pandemic, we're working from home now. There's things like Tinder and things that are, they kind of change the way that we perceive connection, real connection. I don't know. I've never been on Tinder, but.
And as a sex worker, where do you think we fit in to?
Oh my gosh, I think it just gets really interesting when you start to look at it through the lens of sex work, because it doesn't really work unless we get to like a core truth of someone's like humanity, to really like connect with a submissive or a client or a play partner. The core of what we do is about like truth, and it's interesting the parallels between this conversation of truth and morality within artificial intelligence and machine learning, neural networks, all of that is that AI wants to have a concept of truth. And that like haunts me. I'm like, yes, like the true form of an AI is something that truly understands what truthfulness is. And right now it's sort of like, I think we were talking about he's a cognitive scientist, Gary Marcus, and he was quoted as saying like, right now, the school of thought in AI is this like scale. The bigger it gets, the more data you get, it'll inherently become more human, which he's very much critiqued, which makes a lot of sense. The bigger something gets doesn't make it more human. So that idea of like truthfulness and getting to that truthfulness, I think is really in parallel with what we do as sex workers in the industry. Like it doesn't really cultivate anything quite real if you can't get there. So yeah, it's interesting parallels.
I guess when you interact in such a precise
Close.
way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. As we do in our work, you automatically have to start seeing how things are set up in ways not to.
Exactly. Yeah. And to also just break the rules. Right? That's my favorite. You gotta know them before you mess them up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, we connected over the AI and sex work question.
Yeah.
Right?
Because you were getting ready to become a union, right?
Yeah. So that company burned to the ground. Maybe I'll go into that into detail on that one.
Yeah.
In a while.
I'm so curious about your take on it all.
I wonder how far the NDA takes me on that one. But basically I've built my own now.
Love.
Yeah.
Yep.
But so the thing is, I tend to do things with at least some sort of surety.
Yeah. Sure.
You know, at least conceptually, if not the way that it's going to turn out, you know, at least in my head.
I relate to that so much. Yes.
Yeah.
You have a vision.
Yeah. Or at least I have a grasp on what the entity is, even if it's something very external to me.
Even like an overarching theme.
I don't have a grasp on this one. And so it feels really strange.
Yeah.
It's really experimental in comparison to everything else I've ever done, you know, because
that's exciting.
I mean, of course I've written it as much as I can, but I don't know how people are going to take it on. I don't know where it's going to go. I don't know how it could evolve. And I've never created anything like that before. And we don't have a framework.
Love that, though. Yeah. That's true. And I guess maybe you can control that framework too as you sort of see the feedback from it.
Yeah, I wish I could even make it grow with people more than myself.
I was going to ask that if it is a model that's trainable by others or not, or is it just by you?
At this point, me. But I'm wondering how far I can take it. Yeah, and whether I can move it into physical space in some way also.
Yeah, and I love the open source nature.
So maybe I'm finally indulging the artist side of myself that I've been running away from.
Running away from?
Well, I just love structure, you know, and I think a lot of art is about exploring the impossibility. Yeah, and or at least the perceived impossibility. Right. And I feel like the first time that I'm sort of doing that. Yeah. Yeah, the artistry. I guess, I don't know. Maybe I have been working the art angle in some way.
I feel like you have.
Of the mind, you know. I feel like it's not as clear cut as how people normally define art to be. I feel like I can see how people are and I can move them. I feel like that's my sort of medium.
Like the curator.
Of what you're thinking. I think I prefer that above all else. Yeah. But I'm so taken in a moment that I don't understand what I'm doing almost. It's like subconscious sort of a thing. Do you see your work as art? I mean, the things you've described.
Yeah, I do. I feel like that is art. You're sort of like in this expression.
In their head.
The moment. In their head as well. Precious art.
Playing with it. Moving things around.
Curating the experience.
Yeah. And I mean, we've talked about enhancing ourselves, but how do you think AI will enhance our sex work experience? Or for us, for the clients, for the world? Like,
yeah, I think about that as well. I don't quite know until it'll be like truly integrated, you know? Because right now it kind of forces us to be like fragmented almost, right? Like for somebody to interact with my AI, they have to kind of go to somewhere else. Whereas for me, I love curating a kind of trappedness. I love this idea of having like a digital harem globally, which I like sort of oversee. I love that idea and vision and like visual even.
And you do that via Telegram, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Are they on one group or?
No, there are some that are in a group chat if they've consented to that, but mostly it's kind of like me orchestrating separate submissives. But like, I think if it's not an AI that's integrated into that or like into the platforms that I'm using or even my own, it just feels, like fragmented, and it doesn't have that like, they're trapped in my world sort of thing.
Is that because you don't get to experience it?
I think so. I think that's part of it. And I also wonder about more of the larger questions around consent and that sort of thing too. And also,
how does that factor?
I think, well, if it's like a, how DOMs will have chatbots and they can also drain money or whatever it is from a FinDom standpoint. I always wonder about like the consent of that, I guess, like how much of that is controlled by the DOM and how does it affect the actual like DS of it? If it's a model that's trainable by the submissive, are they more in control than the DOM? Like I always, I get kind of in my head about.
But if they're
that.
unaware.
If they're, true.
Of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, who is controlling what? It's like, that's where it kind of gets
definition
into
thing then, isn't it? It's like who instigated the bot. I
exactly,
guess.
that too.
Maybe.
Even that approach.
It depends where we're going to put that definition.
Exactly.
So it becomes like a legislative / philosophical question.
Yes. I think that's where my head goes all the time, where it like spirals into these like larger questions when really I could just have a chatbot for passive income.
Yeah.
Easily. Which I did for a little bit.
What platform did you use?
Telegram as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, whenever we're thinking about AI and sex work, we always end up talking about the client side and how it might affect them and human interaction and what they're going to gather from that or what it's going to hinder. But I feel like we haven't talked about what it's going to do for us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what you've just said. It kind of sounds a little bit like it's going to remove something from you.
Yeah.
Yeah. That you like. Enjoy. What if you could compartmentalize? Like you had that more autonomous self and then your own practice.
Yeah. I think the way that I'm moving through my sessions and adding in some of the technological stuff, it's beginning to feel like that a little bit of like, maybe it is okay for me to compartmentalize for, an AI self to kind of run for me or act as more of like a assistant. Like, to me, like a really good AI should just be like a really good submissive, to be honest, like a well-trained something that can, anticipate my needs. And then there's also the safety side of things. I had an idea before I was face out, where I was kind of tinkering with this AI that was trained on my face. And I really had some ideas around doing virtual sessions with my face obscured, with like an avatar or something, some like a very advanced face filter sort of thing. And that was a lot to do with like privacy and things like that before I casually face revealed. But, but I think there is technology there for us to be maybe less surveilled or things like that, but then that gets into politics and legislation and, who owns that technology as well. Right. And that's, I think, my reservations around Web3 and the way that it's going. It's very much
centralized as opposed to the gospel
when it's
that
supposed to be decentralized, actually.
Yeah.
So, and I think at the end of the day, I want sex workers to, of course, be humanized. Always.
You want everything to be humanized.
Everything, yeah. Especially us.
How do you think are the ways that they try to dehumanize us? That we are dehumanized?
the control of the platforms, I think, right? Mm-hmm. And also the fragmentation of how we can operate. And also we can be deleted at any point, right? So the agency can be a little bit low there. But I mean, it's not all grim. I think
depends how you think of the world
with it as well. But
and I think once the world becomes familiar with how much money we can make them, also it seems to be shifting things,
which is why you were reached out by this.
Too, right? And I had a call yesterday actually with a very big, I don't know what to call them, content monetization platform that's very mainstream.
Okay, yeah.
And they reached out to me personally, set up a meeting with like the head of whatever. I'm not going to say who. And I don't know if I'll go with them or not. But they were like, we don't need you to consolidate everything. And I'm like, I would love to consolidate things, but I can't.
Same.
You know, it's like the fragmentation, like you were talking about, is such a thing for us because we can't get a payment here or there.
Yeah, exactly.
And then they said, no, we're cool with it. And I'm like, what? How like,
I need to see the paperwork.
They were like, well, you can send a link to OnlyFans. So like, we couldn't take that payment, but you can have it on there, you know? And it's like, really? It's like, what's happening? And they're like, we think that you'd be very successful. And I'm like, so you think I'll make you money?
Yes.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
Yeah. So I don't know how I feel. Do you have any thoughts about that? About the utilization of our niche popularity?
Oh my gosh.
Our marketability.
Oh my gosh. It's only going to get more prevalent, isn't it?
Yeah. I wonder, like, I try to take charge of my narrative by trying to stay ahead of things. You know, like I've been offered like so many bloody TV things over the years. It's crazy, to the point where I started a production company with my mentor just to run one of the shows, potential shows. I mean, who knows whether these things are ever going to happen.
Yeah.
But it's like, I think maybe it's just trying desperately to have a proper say.
Yes.
But this shit costs money. You know, it's like how much I've already spent on a lawyer and I have earned nothing, you know, on it so far. I mean, how many of us have access to that, you know? So it's just
a very small percent.
But again, politics.
Exactly. All comes down. I think those are mainly my thoughts of like, none of us have access to that. And also, what does that mean for controlling our own voices, our own narratives, and also, you know, the communities that support us, and also just activism as a whole of like decrim and again,
so do you
political.
see a technological solution to how sex workers exist in our world? Just a small question to round us off.
A little bit. Let me stall by saying, what a great question. Oh my gosh.
Like, do I see any? I think I always have the same answer to all of it. I think as a human, I kind of feel like there's not necessarily a finality of any answer, and it's about an involvement.
Yes, sure.
But maybe that's just me grasping because I don't fully understand anything.
Same.
So I guess it's about just making sure we have a skin in the game.
Sure, yeah.
If we can afford to.
Yeah. And I think that's really what is happening, is people, the thought is to get there
sex
first.
Workers.
Yeah. It's just trying it out. And, you know, like with anything else, sex workers are at the forefront of innovation and, you know, societal change, whether they want to admit that or not. So
I mean, we understand that, but why do you think that is? Like, that's been a pattern since, you know, PayPal, and then they kicked us out. And another thing, and then they kicked us out. And another thing, and they kicked us out. Exactly. I personally think that it's
might happen.
Like a resilience thing.
Yes.
Yeah, and adaptability that just has to happen. It makes us innovative.
Yeah, totally.
I wonder when we're going to get to be lazy.
That was going to be my answer of like, I just want time back.
Yeah.
If we start integrating, you know, all of these emerging technologies, AI, machine learning, I just want my time back.
What are you going to do with that time?
be
Press
a human.
on pedals.
Be a human. Press on pedals and yelling to mics.
Sounds fun.
In hopes of hypnosis.
Yeah, I will infiltrate my human-like brothel.
Yes.
For fun, for shits and giggles.
Exactly. That's what I want to get to a place where I can do things for shits and giggles.
Yeah.
If AI can give me back some
of that
time, some playtime, some anything, you know, and less about, you know, how do we fold these technology, even though I love thinking about that, but at the end of the day, I would love to.
How do we make AI
down.
the good submissive so that we can enjoy our actual humanity more? Exactly. Okay, that'll be the next episode then. So thank you very much.
Of course, thank you,
Faye, aka Goddess Faye, aka Sensory Girl.
Home.
Oh, my pleasure. And thank you for listening. We'll speak to you next time.